This week, in a special News 5 investigation, we're taking a look at whether tar balls pose an increased risk for the flesh-eating and deadly bacteria Vibrio vulnificus. Vibrio thrives in warm salt or brackish water, and one prominent scientist at Auburn says it also thrives in tar balls from the 2010 BP oil spill. Dr. Kova Arias is a professor of aquatic microbiology at Auburn University and an expert on the often deadly and sometimes flesh-eating bacteria Vibrio vulnificus. Arias's research at Auburn and through the school's lab at Dauphin Island has focused on Vibrio's impact on the oyster industry, an industry brought to a standstill 3 years ago by the BP oil spill. In 2010, when the spill washed ashore huge quantities of oil, out of curiosity, Arias set out to discover if Vibrio were present in tar balls. She was highly surprised by what she found as she studied tar on the Alabama and Mississippi coasts.
What was clear to us is that the tar balls contain a lot of Vibrio vulnificus.
Arias can show me Vibrio in the lab.
And you can see how they grow on top, that ring around.
It's not something, though, that you can see in the water, sand, or tar balls. But her research shows Vibrio is there, especially in the tar balls and in big numbers. According to Dr. Arias' studies, there's 10 times more Vibrio vulnificus bacteria in these tar balls than in the surrounding sand, and 100 times more than in the surrounding water.
In general, they are like a magnet for bacteria.
Arias' theory is that Vibrio feeds on the microbes that are breaking down the tar. She and researchers looked at tar balls that washed into the same areas they had previously studied, so they could therefore make valid comparisons to before the oil spill.
What we also found was that in water, the numbers were around 10 times higher than the numbers that have been reported before from that area.
So the water alone had 10 times as much Vibrio as before the oil spill. And remember, the tar balls themselves had 100 times more Vibrio than the water. Vibrio is contracted through some sort of cut or abrasion on the skin, usually by the young or old or someone with a compromised immune system. But doctors who fight infectious diseases say the high levels of Vibrio should be taken seriously by everyone due to the random but deadly nature of this bacteria.
It'd be very little exposure, just kind of wrong place at the wrong time.
Tomorrow night, we'll talk to beachgoers about this potentially very serious situation. Many of those we encountered were playing with tar balls, unaware of the Vibrio risk. Now, BP is responding to this story. A company spokesperson sent me a statement this afternoon. Quote, the area study does not support a conclusion that tar balls may represent a new or important route of human exposure for Vibrio infection, or that the detection of Vibrio in tar balls would impact the overall public health risk, since there are other common sources of Vibrio such as seawater and oysters.